Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Sue, your East Oakland advocate. Well, have you walked by one of the Walking Dead? Or do you know one of the Walking Dead? And I'm not talking about the TV show. Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Sue. As you know, I founded and I managed a very large homeless encampment here in Oakland, California. At the peak, I oversaw 63 people for my homeless encampment that I founded, and it was also sanctioned by the city of Oakland on March 18th, 2018. And so I became the very first self-governed homeless community that was sanctioned by the mayor of Oakland at that time, which was Libby Schaaf. And so I think I know a little bit about operating a self-governed camp or even a co-governed encampment, which is what I have been advocating for in the meetings with the city of Oakland. Co-governed encampments. And the city has been going all wrong about how they're dealing with this particular issue. And the homeless, there are three types of walking dead in the homeless encampment, and I've encountered all three. The first one is real obvious. We see it in the San Francisco Tenderloin. We see it here in the BART stations occasionally. We've seen it all over the news, and that's those that are addicted to drugs. And I have a lot of experience with many of those, and a lot of times this is a mechanism on how to cope with the loss of their life, essentially, which got them into homelessness at that time. And it doesn't matter if they made bad decisions or if they were victim. The pain is still there. I know about that pain because when I lost my millions back in 2008 in the housing crash, it was devastating to me. So I truly understand the depression, the embarrassment, and isolating oneself from society, essentially. And when you hit that kind of bottom, living on the streets like I did, it takes a real mental toll. It's very traumatic because there's a lot of evil that lives on the streets, and that evil shows up at your door at any time. And it can be simply just to harass you, or it can end up costing you your life. And it was a very difficult time. And dealing with those that became addicted to drugs because of the stress of living on the street, you can't blame them, really. And a lot of people, unfortunately, do blame the drug addicts. And unfortunately, their mechanism of coping, which at this time we'll say is drug addiction and alcohol addiction. These are mental issues that go along with those addictions because of the trauma that they've endured or that they've been a victim of. And so we have to look at the drug addicts very differently, because a majority of the folks that came into my camp were not drug addicts. In fact, pretty much everybody was pretty clean. That was one of the requirements in order to live in the encampment. But unfortunately, as we know, drug dealers are out there, and you cannot control people, no matter how hard they try. The city has not figured this out yet, we'll say, because harming people, taking their stuff, denying them services, and doing the things that they've done in the past doesn't work, because they're going to continue to exist just with less stuff. But they're not going to go away. And so those that are addicted to drugs, they literally, you've seen them in the media, they look like the Walking Dead because they're completely out of it. And so I've had to deal with a lot of those, and the violence that sometimes comes along with that. And that's the part that's very hard to deal with, because you don't want to hurt these individuals, because you know that they have contaminated thinking at this time, and their contaminated thinking can be very negative, and not only on the words that they say, but by their actions also, because some become very violent, which I've dealt with, and then there are some that aren't violent, but because of the drugs that they may be using at the time, can, let's say, just be very detrimental, overall. Because I've had meth users in my encampment, and the thing that's interesting about meth, not only does it fry your brains, it also causes your body to run hot. And so a majority of the folks that I've dealt with that were meth users, they stripped down. I mean, they stripped down. I've had women do it, and I've had men do it. And so, yeah, I think I know a little bit about drug addiction and the Walking Dead there. Then we have the other Walking Dead. The Walking Dead that most don't come back from. And this is the Walking Dead of the hopeless. Yeah, the hopeless. These are folks, for many different reasons, have lost hope in life. And some even at a very young age. One of my very first residents, will go by his previous street name, which was Sleepy. And Sleepy, he was only 38 when he passed away, and I met him in 2014 at a local park. We had some things in common, which was martial arts. He was a Taekwondo black belt, fourth Dan. So he was not too bad. He could take care of himself there in the park if he was conscious. Sleepy's issue was that he had alcohol addiction also, but again, that alcohol was masking the real deep-rooted hurt in him, and it took me a while to get through and find out what that deep root cause was. And his essentially was just a lot of bad decisions, and he had a child here in Oakland, and he got behind. In 2008 was a really bad year for everybody, and for Sleepy it was especially bad because he lost his job. And when he lost his employment, his family broke up. His mama's baby and his son, he left. He got up and left. And I know that the mother was highly upset because she actually had court attach his wages so that when he did go back to work, or if he got any kind of benefit, that she would be able to seize that. The only thing that she couldn't seize was what Mike was doing, and that was Alameda County assistance. And so Mike got about $350 a month to buy food, and that's what it was mostly for. And then I think he had another $120 in cash, so that that continued his number one, his smoking addiction, which was cigarettes. I mean, he was a very heavy cigarette smoker, and then number two, it sustained his beer addiction, and so he didn't eat much. I literally kept him alive, and I was working to restore hope in him, because he had fallen so far behind in child support. There was no way that he could ever recover, and you can't get it dismissed in bankruptcy. And then it continued because his son turned 18 during his time out on the street. And the sad part is that when Sleepy passed away, and he literally killed himself. He had drank himself into the point of where it became life-threatening, and two of us actually called medical and forced him, because he was on the verge of not being coherent. And so he was taken to a hospital. He was diagnosed with heart failure. He was supposed to stay in there until they stabilized him and gave him medications. He stayed just long enough so that he could get his medication, and then he just got up and walked out, literally. And what made him do that was the doctor told him, if you want to live, you need to stop smoking, and you need to completely stop drinking. And you need to take these medications, which are going to keep you alive and keep your heart pumping, because his heart had slowed down to a point so slow that it was giving the exact same symptoms of a stroke. He was very slurred in his conversation. He was very slow in his thinking. Even his mobility was hindered. So he had all the symptoms of a stroke, and that was one of our main concerns and why we had called for medical assistance. And they convinced him that he needed to go to the hospital emergency. But when he came back, he actually walked out of the hospital after 3 days. And it took that long for the hospital to get his medications up to where they said, well, if you take the medications, you stop smoking, you stop drinking, you may be expecting another year of life. That's how severe his medical condition had deteriorated. And that was because of his mental state. He was literally hopeless, and he had given up on life. And he was only 38 when he passed away. He was born and raised here in Oakland, which really made me sad, because he was right here in East Oakland, and I considered him a good friend. But bringing somebody back from a point of hopeless mental thought is very difficult. It's not impossible, because I've done it. And the person that I say that I did it with, he was a senior, an older gentleman. He was about 10 years older than me at the time, and he had lost hope. And it was pretty sad. He was just like my friend Sleepy, and we'll just say that he's a senior. I'm not going to use even his street name because he is alive today because we were able to restore hope. And now he actually leads a group home with folks. So hope can be restored. And that's one of the things that I want to really talk about today is the restoration of hope. A lot of these folks have been traumatized. I've experienced a lot of the criminal violence that's inflicted upon the homeless. And the way a lot of these criminals look at, the homeless are helpless. They're not going to fight back. If they do fight back, it's not going to be that much until they got to my camp. Because when they got to my camp, we were organized. We were 63 strong at our peak. We had 24/7 round the clock security. There were 5 of us, and I was the person who was kind of like the chief of security, but I didn't depend on myself to take care of some of the issues. And one of the most prevalent issues that my security folks had to deal with was domestic violence. We had 4 couples in the camp that were very prone to domestic violence, and many times we ended up having police down there and ambulance to remove the victim and take them to the hospital. They come back a few days later, and the cycle starts again. And it wasn't until I started pressing charges on these individuals. I filed the stay away order so that perpetrator could not come back into my camp. And if he did come back into my camp, we dealt with them accordingly. And so that's why we were able to do what we were able to do. We were sanctioned because we reduced crime. And here's the very interesting fact that I was told by a staff member of the previous administration. This was in 2018, the month before they actually sanctioned me. That staff member had come down and talked to me face to face and said, we're going to sanction you. We're going to do it on this date. We're going to bring the media down here. We're going to talk about this. And here's the thing. Libby made a comment to me just prior to all of the event taking off. And that didn't sit well with her, because rather than me thanking her profusely like what she wanted, I went and kicked her in the ass about how slow the process was, and that it wasn't the city that let me down, it was her that let me down. That's what I told her to her face. And I mean, she was absolutely furious about that. Everything got canceled, but we still had the sanctioning. So anyway, with the sanctioning, we were able to get a lot of folks housed. And in the right during the COVID, I was able to work at getting the most senior folks off of the street and into some long-term temporary housing. And now just about everybody that are seniors that I got into these different programs are now permanently housed in a satisfactory situation that they approve of. And like I said, this other senior gentleman who's a group home leader now right here in Oakland. And so it's been very successful. So bringing folks back from being the walking dead can be done. You have to take the time to find what the root cause is. And having lived with and managed camps in 63 people, I do believe I have the experience that I can make a pretty good determination. And I've been, like I said, I've been able to turn some people around from, bring them back to life, we'll say, where there's hope and glimmer in their eyes. Because I've been where they've been. You know, back in 2009, I tried to commit suicide, but I didn't succeed, which is good for everybody now. So, The Walking Dead, the folks, they don't have to be in homeless camps either. These folks can be in assisted living. These folks can be living on their own. Sometimes we look at certain folks like the hoarders. Hoarders are victims of another mental state. But what's interesting is that they at least have hope, because they're not throwing anything out. Because if you throw something out, that removes the hope. And so these folks, they have immense hope, even though they're hoarders. And so we need to find a way to get folks in the middle and really become stable. And a lot of this I attribute to the stresses of life and the cost of living. And we need to find different methods of lowering housing costs. And for those that choose to rent, we need to find ways to lower rent, even for those with zero income. We have to find housing solutions. And that's what I intend to truly advocate for. I've been pushing for a number of years a development over at Oakland's Middle Harbor Shoreline Park. It is 180 acres that the city of Oakland owns in the Community Land Trust. And it has been a waste of space since it was handed over from the federal government. The site used to be Military Sealift Command. My dad worked on that base, and I also walked that base when it was MSC. So everything is there that we truly need. We can set up the cohort villages. We have the funding even to create these long-term, temporary, affordable housing solutions. Governor Gavin Newsom and the state of California has given $4.7 million to the city of Oakland. And with that, just that funding alone, we can create 200 affordable tiny homes for the long term on that site. And the site costs you, Oakland and Alameda County taxpayers, zero, because it is part of the Community Land Trust. And right now, it's the most underutilized space in the city of Oakland. And it's a waterfront property. And it really needs to be used. And this is a way where it won't cost the city of Oakland and you, the taxpayers, and the Oakland residents any money, number one. Number two, it is in a location where it is a controlled environment. And it is not overseen by the Port of Oakland. So the city of Oakland has full authority and free reign on that property to do what I have laid out. And we can actually create all the affordable housing that Oakland needs right there with that single project. But we just need to talk about that and move forward with these ideas. And we don't know what Mayor Sheng Tao is up to. There's a lot of homelessness. There's a lot of unaffordability here in the city of Oakland. We have more than enough empty rental units throughout Oakland. How do I know? Because I've already gone and looked. And there are buildings where you sit down with the leasing office and they'll offer you 10, 15, 20 different units, different views, different pricing, different sizes, different amenities. And if you have enough money, you have good credit, you have good history as a renter or a homeowner, you can move in right there on the spot. If you're not, you could be like myself, where I have no history. My credit is good, but I have no rental history, nor do I have home ownership in the past year, which is what a lot of these real estate management companies are doing. And so just that alone, they're taking away hope from people. And these are the dream stealers, the hope stealers, and these are the people that need to be reined in, the greedy landlords. I have another topic coming up very shortly. I'm going to be talking about the landlords of the past and the greedy landlords today. Thanks for joining me today. Hope you get something out of this video about The Walking Dead. There is a way that we can restore life to The Walking Dead, but it's work. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back.